Hello everyone, I'm Prakash Narkade. Welcome to my YouTube channel Automation Talks. So this video is in continuation with a couple of previous video that I discussed earlier about a special execution task that we are planning to develop, which is AWS S3 bucket operations using Tricentis Tosca. So in case in my end-to-end test cases, if I have any operations such as uploading the file, downloading the file, deleting file, listing file, uh, you know, um, whatever operations are supported by S3 bucket, all those operations can be implemented. So in the last few videos we discussed about setting up the custom module, then all our requirements we drafted, and we created a custom module. We set up the C# project in the Visual Studio. So the first three steps are completed. The next two steps, which are the fourth one, which is really important, writing the actual code and how we embed that with the module and how that works. That is something I'm gonna demonstrate today. So let's get started. Let me jump to my Visual Studio, and this is where we are in the Visual Studio. If you remember, we added these references, all the Tricentis references, and then we did added this assembly info as engine here as S3 operation, and this would be required only in case if you are planning to create a custom DLL and then put that DLL into your Tosca installation directory and use it. So there are basically two ways. Either you can set up this DLL, or you can embed the .cs file into your module itself. That gives me basically better control, and that is something what I'm gonna show. Otherwise, creating the DLL, it's like the same thing. Just the recompilation of this particular code will give you the DLL, and that DLL you can use. But then you don't have much control, or you don't know in background what is happening. But then if I have code with me, I understand it better what I'm doing with that code. Okay, so let us get started. So now when we okay, so this is a C# code. Now so when I'm writing the code internally, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use okay, probably I won't need xscan in this case. I won't need winbase32. So these two things probably I don't need. Base is something which I would be using more. Okay, so what I'm gonna do internally is I'm gonna call uh, the libraries are the functions or methods from many of these libraries, and also from this AWS SDK. So from AWS SDK, we'll use it for performing the S3 bucket operation, and from this Tricentis libraries, we'll be using it for connecting to the Tricentis Tosca. So C# will act as an intermediator over here. And then if I quickly talk about this, so this is the model that we created last time, where we created these attributes, and then this is like main attribute, and then it has a child attribute, and then these are again the attributes, and then we did set the parameters and all this stuff. Now what we're gonna do is we are gonna read the data. So now, so when I use this particular module into my test case, I'm definitely gonna pass the bucket name, region, access key, secret access, and all the details, right? So all these details I should be able to read in um, I mean with the help of this C# code. Okay, so let us go here and let us get started. So the very first step, right, I'll talk about that, like how we can get the parameters as an input. But then before that, few basic steps, or few a necessary setup that we would be doing is, and this is something which is mandatory, and that is how we do. So as I said, we are gonna use the various classes or methods from the Tricentis libraries. Okay, so the very first thing, we are going to inherit a class called as not a class, it would be the abstract class called as special execution task, or in some cases special execution task enhanced. Okay, so let me go ahead and yeah, special execution task. Okay, so if you hover the mouse, it's the class which is basically abstract class. Okay, in the abstract class, there is a method that we are gonna implement. I'm getting an error, so here I'm gonna click on show fixes, and because in the special execution task there is unimplemented class, which is execute method, which I'm gonna implement. And here you see it has added me a place where I'm gonna put my implementation. It is still giving me an error, probably to generate the constructor. Yep, so it is having one default constructor, and then a method where we are gonna write our actual implementation of the code. So what I'm gonna do is, because the number of operations that we are doing is big, 5 to 6 operations that we are doing, and then we'll be doing all the error handling and all. So I'm not going to write all the codes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the basic stuff, how I can read the data and how I can put the output data to the buffers. These two steps I will show, and then later I'll have the ready-made written code. I'll write that, and then I'll walk you through that code. Okay, so let us go ahead and get started. Okay, and then one more thing, what we should be doing is we should be, annotating the particular class with special execution task name. My bad. Special execution task name, and this task name should be, this task name should be exactly as same as what you have given here. It should be at the module level, and this is the special execution task name, which is S3 bucket, and this is where it understand or it link your the code that needs to be executed as a part of the module. So the special execution task annotation, and then I'm extending the capabilities of this abstract class special execution task or special execution task enhanced, and then by default it will generate the constructor. So this constructor is basically, if you want to validate all the parameters via constructor, you can put that under here, or you can perform all those validations inside your execute method as well, and that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, next, so the very first step, our problem is how to read the data from module, and once I do that, the second step we are gonna do is how to put the data to say output buffers. Okay, so now to read the data, there are multiple ways. Okay, so the case that you see over here, now I have attributes and I have child attributes as well. So this is the main attribute, these are the child attributes, right? So or I can say this is a parameter and this is a child parameters, right? So there are multiple ways how we can read it. Let's go to that, the first way and the one which we are gonna use. Okay, so here you see it is having a parameter called as test action. Now this text action parameter is of type I special execution task action, and it holds all the information about the module that will be passed. Okay, so if I do here test action dot, I'll get multiple options here as get parameter as input value, get parameters, get parameter value, and whatever, right? So I'm more interested into getting the parameter. Either I can get as an input value or I can get it as a parameter. Okay, so let's say if I get it as a parameter, okay, so the very first thing I should be passing the parameter name. In my case, the parameter name, let's say now just for demonstration purpose, I'll use one of the parameter called as, let's say, local file path, just for demonstration. Okay, we'll go in detail when we have the actual implementation of the full code. And the second parameter is optional. I'm not worried about that right now. And this get parameter returns me a I parameter. Okay, so I'm gonna do I parameter, let's say IP is equal to this. Okay, now if I do IP dot, okay, so there is a method called as get input value, which I'm gonna use, and then this get input value will give me I input value. It gives me I input value, or if I use directly dot dot value over it, probably this will return me a string value. Okay. Okay, so I have the I input value, and then I can do IPv dot value, and this will this will return me a string value. Okay, so now whichever value I am passing into local file path, I'll be getting into this variable called as st. Now this thing I can get done into, one line itself. Test action dot get as an input value dot value will directly give me the st, but then just because to show you, multiple methods around it, I just did that. Okay, so now into a variable st I have the parameter value which I'm gonna pass from local file path. Okay, now the next thing what I want to do is, just to show or just to see if I was able to get the value correctly, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass, or I'm gonna say create a buffer with this particular value. Let us do that. Okay, so to create the buffer, there is a class called as buffers dot. I would be getting its instance. um, I should be using set buffer maybe. I think I need to use instance. Yeah, instance dot set buffer, right? And then here to the set buffer, the first the first argument is the buffer name. Okay, let's say the buffer name, I'm just gonna give something like, let's say, test buffer from sct. So okay, so with this particular name the buffer will get created, and the second parameter is the value, and then the third parameter is escape, which I'm not worried about, which I don't know basically what it is. But then what I want is the buffer name and the value it is gonna set. Okay, now the more important is, okay, so right now you see the method is still showing throw new not implemented exception, which is not right because we have already implemented this method. So I should be deleting that line. But then now it is telling me I should have some return value, right? And it should be of type action result. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put, let's say, return new, and there are multiple action results. Okay, which I'll talk about in some time. But for now I'm telling that, okay, my test step has been passed and it will perform these results. Again, I mean, I can pass the parameters to this method, and then you see there are three overloads. In the overloads I should be able to pass some values to that message. Okay, the message that I see after success rate, so that particular message. But then for now I'm good with this. Okay, so let's say now let's say I have written the code. Now how to attach or how to embed this particular code to your module. Okay, now this has nothing to do with s3. Okay, as I said, s3 code I'll have it and then I'll walk you through. But then here I just wanted to explain how we access the parameters and how we perform the operations. Now once I have the value, I can do any operations with that, with my the logic in the C#. But then more I want to understand how I can get the value and how I can put the value. That is what is all about in the special execution task. Okay, so as I said earlier, there are basically two ways. Let me pull this here. Okay, so there are basically two ways. The first way is about creating the DLL file of the code that we have written. Okay, and then you should be putting this DLL file into your tbox slash I mean the tbox home slash I'm not pretty sure what that folder would be. It should be tbox home slash, I think the folder name itself is tbox. Okay, and then within tbox folder you should be putting all your DLL files that we have. This is one way. The second way is to embed the .cs file of the code to module itself. And the second way is something what we're gonna follow. Okay, because I know like what is my code, and then I understand the code, and by looking at the code I can understand the process what I'm doing with this. But then if I directly put the DLL, and this is the same thing what we have done, what Tricentis have done for all its standard models. Now let me follow the second way. I'm just gonna copy this particular code into my notepad, and then I'm just gonna save this file, save as. I'm just put it on my desktop, and then okay, so the one thing that you need to remember, that is you should be saving that with exactly same name as your special execution task name. So my special execution task name is this, and I'm gonna use the exact same name for my file. Okay, so I should be using .cs. Okay, so it is on my desktop. Okay, so this file is saved. Now in my Tosca, what I'll do is, this is the module. On this module, I'll right click, attach file, and then I should be using the one from S3 bucket operations, embedded, not a reference. And then you see there is a .cs file attached to my module, and this particular module is now good for execution. Let us go ahead, let us drag and drop this module on the test. Let us try to perform. And now I know that this all other attributes are not implemented, just this local file path attribute is implemented, where I'm just gonna say test path, because I just want to see if this particular value is getting utilized within SCT. If yes, then it will create a buffer with name buffer from test buffer from SCT, and then it will hold this value. Let me go ahead and then run it. Okay, so the execution is success. As you see, there is no message because we didn't pass any message, right? But then we have seen there are multiple overloaded constructor, and this step does not hold any value, sorry, the message, because we didn't pass it. But then if I go to buffer now, you see the buffer is created, test buffer from SCT, which is what we asked for, test buffer from SCT, and it should hold the value that is passed into their local file path. In my local file path, I passed test path, and the buffer got created, right? So here we learn two way. One is to get the data into my from my module to my special execution task, and then how to give it as an output to the Tosca in the form of buffer, obviously here. But then later we'll see about S3 bucket, how we can get that. Okay, so this is all about it, how we can do that. Now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna pause this video for some time. I'll have all my code ready for S3 bucket, and then I'll explain that. Okay, so I have all my code into this particular class1.cs now. I'll walk you through this code, and then we'll see how we can embed that again and how to test that. Now here when I wrote the code, I had made sure that it perform the detailed logging. Okay, so to perform the logging, so logging is because here it's not my project, right? A very specific project. It's a standalone code that gets executed, but then I need to make sure that it produce the code and put it back to your test tab after the execution. We'll see that how better we get that. But then to capture all that log information, I have created this list of string called as logs, where I'll be storing all my information, all my logs, which I'm gonna put at the end to the test tab. Now here at the end, I have created two private method. One method, the list of string variable logs, which where I'll be adding all the logs with date timestamp. Okay, and then the message. So to log any messages, I have created this method. So going forward, I'll be calling this log method for logging any information. And then in my actual step, wherever I want to pass all these logs to the Tosca test steps. So something like here you see, right, unknown failed unknown failed action results, and then here I'm calling a method called as get logs. Now what this get logs method will do, it will basically add all the information from a list of string called as logs, right there. This information will be used. Now let us go ahead and scroll to the top and let us understand. So we have seen there was a method called as execute, which is returning action result. Now what my goal is, okay, let us forget all these things for now. So what my goal is, so let us go to here. So my goal is, I want to perform multiple operations. So based on the operation that I have, I'm going to upload the file, I'm going to download, list file, delete, check if file exists, and if none of these, then probably it will throw you some exception. But then if it is upload file, it is gonna call this method called as upload file async. Okay, and this is something again we have implemented, which will show you. Okay, but then at the end of the day, these are the methods, which will get called based on the operations. Okay, now how are we getting all these values? So the same thing. So the very first thing what I'm going to do is, as I said, I'll be doing the rigorous logging. So I'm starting the execution. So the very first thing, I'm getting the configurations in my Tosca. I'll be passing the configuration information as in my bucket name, region, access key, and secret access, and that is what I'll be getting it. So because this is like parameters, there are multiple configuration parameters, right? So first we'll get a parameter called as S3 bucket configuration, which is my config parameter. And then from config parameter, okay, and then again I have added some checks. If the config parameter is null, we should be throwing an exception that config parameters are missing, which is mandatory. Okay, and then from config parameters, I'll be pulling up the child parameters, right? In the main config parameter, which is S3 bucket configuration, I have the child parameter called as bucket name, region, access key, and secret access. You need to make sure that these names are exactly same as the Tosca module attributes. Okay, so from the config parameter, I'm calling get child parameter, and then S3 bucket, and then I'm getting it as, if it is action mode input, then I should be getting its input value. Again, here I did not added much validation if it should be like action mode input only, but then I can add it at the module level itself, which I'll show you. Okay, so with this I was able to get the bucket name, region, access key, and secret access. And again here I have added some validation. If it is null, then it should be throwing you an exception. Okay, now, okay, so here I was getting I input value. Now from this I input value, I should be getting the string value. So here it is, bucket name is I bucket name dot value, region I'm getting in the string format, same for access key, secret access, and operation. Okay, now this is where I till now I captured all the information from my configurations that I need for S3 bucket. Now the next thing is I would be establishing the connection to S3 client. Okay, so these are like some standard code which again I can get from this AWS SDK. So here two things I'm doing. So the very first thing, I'm setting up the region endpoint. Okay, and this is again something which I haven't implemented. This is something coming from the AWS SDK documentation. Okay, so first I should be creating the region endpoint, and then there is a class in AWS SDK called as Amazon S3 client, where we should be passing your access key, secret key, and bucket region, which got created over here, which will create your client. And now this client will be used for performing your whatever operation that you do with your S3 bucket. Okay, so till now we have captured all the information that is needed for creating the connection or establishing the connection, and then we created a S3 client object which hold, or which is basically used for performing all the operations. Okay, and then sudden loggings. Now I know here, I know what operation I'm gonna perform. If my operation is upload file, then it is gonna call this method. Okay, now let me go to this method, upload file sync. Here it is. Okay, so this particular method is used for performing the upload function, upload file operation, which accepts three parameters. One is the client. This holds all the information about your connection. Bucket name, it helps basically to tell which bucket you should be uploading the file into. Within bucket, there would be path as well. Okay, and all that information will be held into this test action parameter. Okay, so till now we just extracted all the information from this configuration, but then I don't know till now what is my local path, file name, S3 file path, S3 file name, all the stuff. So all that information is present under this test action. Okay, then again I'm doing the same stuff. You see, from the test action I'm getting the parameter input value, and then performing this validations there, and then throwing an exception if any of these parameters are missing. And then you see I'm getting the local file path, I'm getting the S3 file path, and then output is not used basically over here, which is only used in um, if file present, and then listing the files. Only for those two operations I have used this variable file path. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to construct this local file path by combining local file path plus file name, which is like the full path of my file, and then s3 key. S3 key is basically it's again a string variable. It is just that my file path plus file name on s3 bucket. That is what s3 key. Okay, s3 key is like the full path of the any file on the s3 bucket. Okay, so which is again s3 file path plus s3 file name. Okay, now again this transfer utility is coming from this AWS SDK, and I'm just calling one of the method called as upload async, and then it is having this local file path and this s3 file path and then the bucket name where this file upload is performed. Okay, and then if this step get executed successfully, I'm logging, and then if you see here earlier we just used past action result without any parameter, but then now I'm passing a return new past action result, and then I'm passing some message file uploaded successfully through s3 bucket, and then I'm at the end I'm appending the logs as well, so that I get further more details about it, which I'll show you. If there is an exception, I'm gonna pass failed action result, and with whatever exception that I get over here, e dot message, and then obviously whatever logs that I have. If there is any generic exception, I'm repeating the same stuff. I'm getting that exception, catching the exception, putting that here, and then along with the logs. Okay, so this is like a simple implementation for uploading the file to s3 bucket. Similarly, I do have the implementation for download file again, which is like more or less same, but then if you see the difference in upload file and download file, I have all these four parameters: local file path, local file name, s3 file path, s3 file name. Same for download. But then if you see for listing the file, now if I have requirement to list the file from particular bucket, I don't I don't need to know all these parameters like local file path, local file name, s3 file name, right? I don't need that. What I need is just s3 file path, right? So if you see here, I'm just getting s3 file path. That is just one parameter I need. I don't worry about all other parameter. So in that case, I'll just validate if s3 file path is not null, then only I'll throw an exception. Whereas I don't worry about all the other parameters. Okay. So this implementation I have here. And then for deleting the file, now for deleting the file I need two parameters, s3 file path and s3 file name, so that that particular file will get deleted. For other variables, other attributes, I'm not worried about. And then finally to check if the file exists, again the same thing, s3 file path and s3 file name. So only for upload and download I would be needing all four parameters, but then for deleting or checking if the file exists, I don't need. Okay, and about the output variable that I have created, if you see, let's take an example of this file exist. So in the file exist, okay, yeah, so here if you see, uh, so by default I should be passing the output parameter that I have here, this parameter I should be only using it for buffer. This is what I have coded, but then again if you change the implementation, you can obviously go ahead and change it in module as well. But what I did is, if action mode is buffer, then only set the same thing what we have seen, buffers.instance.set buffer, the output value that we get, which is either true or false. If the file exists, it will return true. If it is not, then it will return false, right? You see here we'll be setting it true to this particular buffer if the file exists. Otherwise by default I think it is set to false. Yeah, so here it is, and if there is an exception, it is set to false. That means that particular file does not exist, right? So this is where it is. Now I have all this code. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this code and I'm gonna put it under the file that I have on my desktop, which we created earlier. Let me edit this. Okay, so this was the file. I'm just gonna replace it content with the new file. Okay, so now I have this .cs file, and then what I'll be doing is I'll go to this module, I'll delete this old .cs file, and I'm gonna attach this new cs file. Okay, make sure that if you are making any changes to the code, every time you should replace that file, because it is getting embedded, it is not getting linked, right? So it is kind of getting uploaded into Tosca itself, so you need to make sure that you do all those operations again. Now okay, so now my module is 100% ready, whatever I was looking for, where we have implemented all the operations. What I'm gonna do is, let us test this upload file functionality. What I'm gonna do is, let me get all the details of my S3 bucket. Okay, so my S3 bucket name is this. Okay, my region is north 1. Okay, my access key is this. Okay, let me get the secret access key as well. Okay, so I have got my access key, I have got my secret access, and then I'm gonna test the functionality called as upload file. Now for uploading the file, what I would be needing is local file path. Let me use my local file path, let's say as test project. Here itself I'm gonna, let's say, create a new file. Okay, I'm just gonna say test.txt. Okay, it's a text file, and I'll just say, I'll just add some content to it. Let's say hello. Okay, saved it. Now this is the file that I'm gonna upload. I'm just gonna copy its path and put it here. Okay, and you need to make sure that it is just the path to your folder, because that's the local file path, not the full file path, right? So it is C Tosca project, and then my file name is test.txt. This is my file name. On so this is my local. Now on S3 bucket, where you want to upload this file, either so this is the bucket name, but then within bucket there must be some path, some folders, right? So let's say if the folder exists, that is fine. If the folder does not exist, it will create the folder. Okay, let's say I'm just gonna, let's say, create a folder called as test path. Okay, now within this test path, I want to upload the file named this, so probably I'll use the same name. Okay, and that is pretty much the output variable, as I said, will be used only for 2 cases, which we'll see. I'll run it in the scratchbook. Okay, and if you see, the execution is success, and you see the log info. Now as I was saying, I have tried to put the detailed logging, and here you see, so it is telling upload is completed successfully, but then it tried to put all the logs that we have done. So it was getting the configurations, it is initializing the connection, it is, you know, uploading the file, and then file upload is success and all the stuff, right? So the detail logging, this helps if there is an issue. Right now there is no issue, but then this helps when there is an issue. For an example, let's say if I give uh, let's say wrong bucket name, instead of 123 I'll just make it as 1232, and let us run it. Okay, there is an error, and here you see, okay, this is the S3 bucket name that we are passing, but the S3 bucket does not exist. So this helps if there is an issue. Okay, great. Now let me go to my S3 bucket. Here it is, and let me refresh it. It's the same bucket, Tosca test 123. Yeah, so here you see it has created a path, test path, where I have a file called as test.txt, which is uploaded right now. Okay, so my upload file functionality is success. Let us test one more. I know everything will work. I'll just, you know, test the delete functionality, because I have uploaded, I'm just gonna delete it. So let's say I want to delete the file. So I'll use delete file. So for deletion, I don't need this local file path. I don't need this. I just need this. Okay. Okay. Or even before delete, probably I can quickly test if exist. Okay, so to check if it exists, uh, check if the file exists. I don't need local file path, I don't need local file name, I just need s3 file path, s3 file name. So I'll be checking if this particular file exists on the s3 bucket, and the result I'll be storing into a variable called as isExist. Okay, so and it should be buffer action mode. Let me run it. So this buffer isExist will hold a value true if it exists. If it does not, then it will hold a value called as false. So right now you see isExist is set to true because that file is existing. Now I'm going to test the delete. I'm going to delete that particular file. Let me run it. The file will get deleted now. Yeah, it shows success. I'm assuming the file is deleted now. I can go to S3 bucket. I'll just refresh. Okay, and I don't see that particular file now. There is nothing into this test path. Okay, yeah, there is nothing. Okay, great. My file got deleted, and now even if I run this if exist, it should return me false now. Earlier it was returning me true. Now it should be returning me false. Yeah, you see now it is false. Is file exist? False. Okay, so yeah, I think that is pretty much so this particular special execution task works very well for all these 5 functionalities. If there is any new functionalities should be added, feel free to let me know. I can definitely help you. And then now where to get this code. So all this code is present on GitHub. So if you go to my GitHub page, and I'll help you. Where is that? Yeah, so this is the URL, github.com/prakashnarkad, and here you will see all my repositories. But then for Tosca, this is the repositories that where I have all this code, and I have mentioned all this documentation that I have created, what and all functionalities support, how to use it. So here if you see, I did try to mention about DLL file. But then if the DLL file is not working in your case, if it is blocked or for whatever reason, right, you can go ahead and then use the same approach of using .cs file, which I usually prefer. Okay, so you can have a look at this particular GitHub, and then as I said, all my code what I have just talked about, right, that particular code is present over here. The exactly same code, you can go ahead and use it. Okay, so this link I should be putting in this YouTube video description. You should be able to find it. Okay, I think that is pretty much it's a pretty lengthy video, but then here I tried to explain the end-to-end process what we'll be doing. And then one final thing, right, before I probably close this video. So the one what we have seen is how to embed the CS file into your module. But then what if you want to run it, what if you want to use the DLL file? So you should be running this. Okay, so once you run, you should see the compilation is happening, and okay, so you see the particular DLL file got created over here. Okay, so under this particular location you see s3 bucket operation project .dll. So this DLL file got created, and this DLL file you should be putting under tbox home project folder. Okay, and I think one thing that I again forgot to tell you, adding the reference libraries. I don't remember if I already, but then as I said, we should be using 2 reference libraries over here. Here, yeah, so tbox home /tbox /aws sdk s3.dll, and then sdk core.dll. so these are the 2 DLL file. In the very first video of mine I have explained why these are required and how to get those. So I have just referred this DLL file from this tbox home tbox folder. Again, I'm referring this location because I already make a copy paste of this into this Tricentis installation directory. If you have it somewhere outside, you can feel free to provide that full path of that to the DLL files. That will work. But then what I tried is to have all these DLL files to the Tricentis installation directory. Okay, and then these DLL files should be also a part of this the zip file that I have added here, in the readme. Okay, you should be able to find it here. Okay, great. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, or anything more to be implemented or anything to be fixed, feel free to reach out to me, probably through this video or through the LinkedIn. I have my URL over here. And yeah, I hope that helps. Thanks everyone. Bye.